It's very important to start with a good quality of pork. Here I've chosen a nice loin roasting joint, which was a little bit too big, so I've cut off a few chops, but as you'll see, it's bone-in pork with the skin on and not too much fat. The other important things to do are to get your prep done early. Here I'm peeling some beetroot that have been taken fresh from the market, and I'm going to get those all ready for my barbecue. I've also peeled some potatoes and cut them so that they're a nice size for baking potatoes. And the more you get done before your actual barbecue starts, the more time you've got to spend with your guests and friends as you're doing your barbecue. Getting your beetroot into cubes around about, I suppose, just over an inch in size. You want it to be a decent sort of chunk that people can still bite into and enjoy with their meal. I've set up the fire here for indirect. As you'll see, I've got the coal in 2 baskets on the side. Now, normally I like to use natural fire lighters. I don't want paraffin-y flavors coming into a roast, especially a roast that's going to be going for a while. I also like to use lumpwood charcoal rather than briquettes or impregnated briquettes. Again, you really just want to try and get the flavors coming through from the natural wood rather than from chemicals or paraffins that get added for fast lighting coal. You'll see once the fire's going and you've got your grill going there, it gives you a beautiful, beautiful scent coming off that lumpwood charcoal, and you can play around a lot with different variants of wood based on where in the world you are and what flavors you like to go with. In America, mesquite works really well. In other countries, you will have woods that work for you. Once the coals start to get that greyish sort of glow around them, then you know that you're about ready to start. And I'm starting here by adding a little bit of chicken stock onto the drip tray in the middle. That's going to keep the meat nice and moist. It's also going to be the basis for my gravy, and it's going to add some flavor to my meat. And just a little bit of the of alcoholic apple cider. Again, those flavors will come through a little bit in the meat, but will also make fantastic gravy. Once you've got the pork ready to go on, you just paint on a little bit of oil onto that skin side. It's going to make that crackling nice and crisp, and ensure you get the best results out of that. And then you obviously rub the salt into that crackling, and that gives you this wonderful blistering that you're going to need to get a nice quality of crackling. And don't be afraid to really get in there and rub it into all of those scores that you've made earlier in your pork, and ensure that you get a good even coverage there. Also try to make sure that the dog doesn't get it. As you'll see, you place it directly in the middle over your drip tray, and you want the fire fairly hot early on in the process. Around 200 degrees Celsius is going to give you a nice crackling effect. You can even go slightly warmer initially, and then as your fire cools, you'll get into that nice slow roasting phase of the cook. Really important at this point not to raise the lid too often. You want to try and just leave it there cooking over. Every time you raise the lid, you're just going to be removing the heat. You'll see already that crackling starting to crisp up nicely, and we've got some stuff happening there. Now the pan there for the oil is there for the potatoes. You'll see at the moment that the oil's fairly cool still. I maybe should have put the oil on slightly earlier, but it's not a major problem. Once you've got your potatoes in, you just want to make sure that you've got a good covering there and that the potatoes aren't sitting dry. Experiment a little bit also with different potatoes for roasting. Yeah, this is very much the same as roasting in your oven. So you'll find that certain potatoes work better for roasting than others. And then once you've got a good covering on all of those, you just want to make sure that you've got a little bit of space between your potatoes too, and that they're not crowding each other. That little bit of space will make sure that they get nice and crispy, and that you don't end up with soggy potatoes. This does take a bit of time, and you do want to make sure that you get it right, and so it's less important than the heat that you've lost for this time. Your pork will still be doing some of its cooking. Once you're ready to put your beetroot on, just place it in another dish like this. I tend to find the higher sided dishes work better for the beetroot, with a little bit of olive oil. And again, you just want to place that on indirect heat on your fire. And at this stage, if your guests haven't arrived yet, all that you've got to do is play with the dogs unless they're sleeping. I'm using the second biggest of the Weber barbecues there for space, but all of this works equally well on any of the sizes. You'll see that I keep the bottom vents open all the time, and I mainly use the top vents on the Weber barbecue for temperature control. That way you don't starve the fire and risk putting it out. Once you take your pork off, you want to be taking that beautiful gravy that's been cooking away underneath and just setting that aside a little bit to settle. You also, at this stage, want to start turning your potatoes. You don't want to do that too early because you'll break them, but you'll see that a little bit of breakage is inevitable, and you just want to make sure that you get nice crisp all the way around. You can see the beautiful crackling there. That's the effect that you want. Slightly blistered but not burnt. That's a nice crispy crackling. You want to wrap that up now and just leave that to rest while you finish the rest of your barbecue. You can also start moving elements onto direct heat or off to direct heat as you need to now, based on what needs to happen and how quickly things need to get done. The asparagus, really just, you want to give it about 3 minutes on the direct heat, not too much more than that. And there you go, a beautiful Sunday roast all cooked on the barbecue, and perfect for you and your guests. With a homemade apple sauce and a beautiful apple cider gravy. Enjoy.